Okay, we'll start off with just introductory comments. My name is Jerry Gill. I'm the interviewer today, and I'm interviewing Dr. Henrietta Mann in the OSU Library on the OSU campus on September 13th, 2008. I'm a faculty member of the Oklahoma State University Library, and this interview is being conducted as part of the O State Storage project of the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. Dr. Mann, you've been recognized as Cheyenne of the Year, as National American Indian Woman of the Year, one of the top five, quote, top five women educators of the 20th century, and yet you have been quoted as having said, quote, my entire goal in life is to be nothing but a good Cheyenne woman, end quote. Can you explain to me what you mean by that?
Of course, I am Cheyenne. I was born in Hammond, Oklahoma. I was born in Cheyenne. And my grandfather and my father's teachings as I was growing up were, it doesn't really matter where you go, what you do. You just have to always remember to be Cheyenne, to speak your language, to know your culture, to be proud of who you are, to help others, help to understand us as a people. And so it is really nothing more than being the best person that I can possibly be, and who happens to be a Cheyenne Indian woman. To be a compassionate person, to be generous, to be helpful to others, to in my profession to teach others about the larger world and about themselves. If I were to put myself into a category, I would say that I would fall more in the line of being a humanistic kind of educator, because I believe in the person, and it has been a joy to be a junior high teacher, a high school teacher, a university professor, to have been involved in shaping the intellectual capital of this country, and all the more joyful when they have American Indian students. And so by being a good Cheyenne, I hope to set an example for others to emulate, and very basically to say, this is a standard, or this is the bar for me, but I expect you to come along and set a higher standard, set that bar higher, because you can. I believe in the human potential, the potential of each person, regardless of who they are, but my emphasis has always been focused upon American Indian students because of the way that we have been disadvantaged in terms of the achievement gap that exists now, but certainly not disadvantaged when it comes to our cultures. We are very spiritually rich. We are culturally wealthy. And it is exactly that I have wanted to emphasize, and the reason that I have taught Native American studies for my entire professional career at the higher education level.
Well, you've also indicated, to kind of follow up on that question, that you were called by your parents and your grandfather to be a prayer woman. And you prayed in ceremonies, indigenous gathering of tribes in New Zealand, on Ground Zero, the former World Trade Center, Stonehenge, Cape Canaveral for Native American astronaut, and hundreds of other events. In the Cheyenne culture, what is a prayer woman, and how were you called to be that?
From a cultural frame of reference, one has to understand that we as human beings are a certain part matter or physical, but there is that spiritual dimension to us that we that makes us spirit-centered, spirit-filled, and we need to walk on earth as if we were walking, living a prayer. Every step we take is a prayer upon this very beautiful and fragile mother of ours that we know as Earth, that we know as a grandmother. And so there are some individuals within the tribe that have a certain inclination to go and be one of the keepers of the sacred knowledge of the Cheyenne people. And as it turns out, this is something that unknown to me that was set forth uh, for me to do as a very young child, maybe by my great grandmother. My great grandmother was unfortunately and tragically at the massacre of the Cheyenne along the Washita River. She was she was at Sand Creek, and my father told me that when he brought my mother and I home from the hospital, that she was waiting. She was a midwife, and she took my tiny body in her hands and used it in a very sacred way, in the way that one handles a pipe, and pointed my head to the four sacred directions of the universe and to the above and below, and in her language prayed for for good things for me, I am sure. My father said a long life, a good life, but again, one that is of service to all. And so that, as it turns out, I follow the traditions of the Cheyenne people as one of the prayer women of the people, having participated in the Cheyenne Sundance, which we call the dance of New Life, or the New Life Lodge, which begins our new year. It's began in July this year. And I am one of those women, a very long line of prayer women who have responsibility for maintaining and upholding and keeping our spirituality as a people strong and viable so that we can live.
Are your prayers in Cheyenne language? Are they? Is my understanding, is that correct? And what kind of sort of are there different prayers for different occasions that you have, or sort of the kinds of prayers?
It's usually the same prayer, and I think certainly not just for Cheyennes, but one has to remember that American Indians pray for all life. They pray for everything in this universe and in the creation that was put here. I would begin my prayers with saying Hana Mahel. Hitzitzia Mewana. Ne Hana dots ne mamastimst. E piven it was nidot nimansta. E piven it was shilan histan hill. Nahawan. E piven it was to what it's in Mahone. Na ishit da ishit hadokia namat hot map omodomus to est. Adakian shibatis nimansta. I have greeted our Creator and said that I send a prayer to you today. I call upon you. I call upon the spirits of the four directions. I ask that you will watch over all humankind, all people. I want you to watch over all of our relatives, the four-leggeds and those that fly, those that crawl on the ground, those that stand rooted in the earth. I ask that you watch and out for and always keep the sun and the moon and the stars safe in their constellations and in their orbits in the universe. I ask that you watch over and protect these four basic elements of life, the earth, air, fire, and water. And ask that you will always love and have mercy upon this place that we call home. So, very simple, but it encompasses everything in this universe, and it can be no more than that. Or I could just say, watch out for all my relations. So that is something that two keepers of the tribe do daily for us as a people. The keeper of the sacred arrows, who lives here in Oklahoma, and the keeper of the sacred buffalo hat in Montana. And they do nothing but continue to send prayers out to all the spirit beings in the world. And so that's a very honorable job. It is a job of high calling, because not all are called to do that, but it is also a very awesome responsibility. So as you mature and walk around this earth circle of life and reach the age that I have reached at this point in my journey here, then I am expected to strengthen myself spiritually. My physical capabilities are starting to diminish, osteoarthritis, I mean, name it. But now that I'm reaching that point where I'm going back to live in the world of spirit, I'm going back to live with spirit. then I need to make sure that I am strengthened spiritually to make that final step back to that world from which I came initially. So it's that kind of knowledge that I carry as one of the prayer women of the Cheyenne people. Uh, does that explain to
Yes, ma'am.
you adequately? And
Very, very good.
I'm very humbled to have that responsibility.
Picking up on your conversation about when your grandmother kind of presented you, your great grandmother, can you share us a little bit about growing up, details of your early life, growing up in Western Oklahoma, in Hammond, America, but and kind of explain maybe the people and the culture that influenced you growing up?
I was born in Cheyenne, and I don't know what my grandmother said, but whatever it is, she firmly grounded me in this earth. She firmly grounded me in my culture. So growing up, Cheyenne and Hammond, Oklahoma was a wonderful, wonderful experience. It was also had racial overtones that I experienced, but the good parts I prefer to remember. I am told by my father that as a baby in arms, our little community, and there were the majority of Cheyennes in Hammond who still lived in the camps, as we call it, in box tents, and they lived there for all year round. Yeah, they preferred to live in this community, wonderful community. And so I was elected the chairman of our Christmas committee as a baby. Of course, I was very, very powerless to be a chairperson of the Christmas committee, but this is something that my parents did for me. They assumed that responsibility. So did my grandfather, and so did my great grandmother. And they did all the planning that was involved with having our Christmas celebration, which we celebrated on December 25th. We had a very strong Mennonite Indian community growing up, and so we would have fundraising activities and get enough money to hire a flatbed truck to come to the Canadian River to pick out a beautiful cedar tree, and we would take it and decorate it in the new traditions in the way that the people who brought their traditions with them taught us. And we would have gift giving, and of course we love that because we give away all the time, any occasion. It can be very expensive to be Cheyenne in 2008, but nonetheless you give, because you're also expected to be generous of heart and generous of spirit. And whenever that Christmas tree then was the decorations taken down, the limbs were taken off, and they were given a limb to each family, so that they could take that cedar and dry it and use it to smoke their homes throughout the year, because we say that the cedar is very powerful, and we believe it doesn't get struck by lightning. It's always green, and we burn it in our homes and in our ceremonies to make things good and holy and bring them close to the spirit, so that the community then would take those cedar branches home with them and remove the needles and dry them, and for the rest of the year until the next Christmas celebration, unless they got some earlier, they use them to smoke their health, to protect themselves, to take away anything that might be negative, and to put a very strong protective shield of the cedar smoke around them. So we did that on Christmases. So we celebrated many occasions. Our own the Sundance, Mother's Day. We celebrated Flag Day. We're very patriotic as a people, and we'd all gather in the community, and we would all eat together. There's usually an organizing committee that divided responsibilities and brought us together. We have always lived in community, valued community, and have always wanted to keep it strong. And so that was a part of the cultural life of growing up Cheyenne and Hammond, Oklahoma. The other was growing up Cheyenne in a school in which we were the minority, even though we had a very high percentage of the population of Hammond to be in Cheyenne. And I went to school with maybe usually a handful of Cheyenne children in each of my classes. And we dealt with the kind of tension that sometimes occurs between Indians and non-Indians. I would say very normal, a very normal teenage life and participating in extracurricular activities, the life of the school itself, but always, having that cultural life available at the Indian camp, keeping that strong, speaking our languages at home, speaking our languages in the community, and celebrating in the summertime with gatherings or another with foot races or gunny sack races or having a couple tie the inside legs together and jump, three-legged, and just those normal things. I grew up with that kind of an experience. However, there were the heavy Christian influence. We learned to sing little Christian hymns, make signs to go along with them. My mother had a beautiful voice and could sing many of our other Christian hymns in the Cheyenne language, and I picked up some of them and can sing along with somebody else today. But I've been away for a long time. I was gone for about 35 years, and I made for a full circle. The circle is virtually complete. I'm supposed to go back to Montana. Montana was good to me. It was a wonderful childhood. There were the challenges that one had to face: alcoholism, racism or discrimination, health issues that have become more pronounced today. But I look back upon my time in Hammond, Oklahoma with a very good heart, with fond memories.
You indicated that you knew at an early age you wanted to be a teacher.
Right.
And then I think, in fact, you enrolled, you were only 16 years old, is that right, at Southwestern Oklahoma State?
I did.
University of Weatherford. Could you tell us a little bit about that, I guess maybe calling there again with to be a teacher, and then also maybe your experience there at Southwestern?
I had an unfortunate experience that was racially motivated, and became very disillusioned in about my fourth year of grade school. And I know I went home in tears. And my grandfather held me and soothed me as only a grandparent can do, and talked to me about it and said that this is something that you're going to have to learn to live with because it exists. Mm-hmm. What a horrible thing to have to tell a child, that we have to live in a world where there is racial discrimination and that kind of tension. And he said, and it's going to be up to you how you deal with it. And he said, and of course I never ever want you to deny who you are as a Cheyenne person. So maybe you need to be teaching that to someone. Maybe you need to be like those first students that we sent to off-reservation boarding schools. Maybe you need to be that, build those bridges of understanding. And maybe you need to think about teaching as a profession by that time. Of course, I love education. I've always loved education. I've always wanted to learn. And so I said, then I'm going to be a teacher. If it's going to be in my childlike mind, it's going to build those bridges of understanding and make life more harmonious and more peaceful for us as human beings. That's what I want to do. And I became a teacher, wanting to help help create bridges of understanding between and among cultures.
So you got your degree in education there at Southwestern. And
I did. My first degree was a Bachelor of Arts degree in education with a major in English, simply because I speak English with an accent. I didn't speak English very well in my home. Our first language was Cheyenne, and I knew that if I was going to be a teacher and if I were going to succeed, that I would have to learn to communicate in the way that as mainstream America does. So I majored in English. I have 2 degrees in English, as a matter of fact, and that was what I wanted to teach. At the foot of the hill from the school in Hammond was a theater, and there was a little curb. I could remember my grandfather sitting there and visiting with his cronies and saying, Henrietta's going to go off to college and she's going to go and learn English, and she's going to teach English. He said she needs to do that because she's going to be a teacher. And then it seemed as if many years later, when I finally got my first degree, it seemed as if my grandfather and his cronies are still sitting in the same spot. And he says, "Oh, you remember my granddaughter Henrietta?" He said, "She's gone to school and she's learned to speak English, and now she's going to teach English to the white people's children." He said, "But the beauty is she still remembers and knows how to speak Cheyenne." And so it was very important for me from the age of, in my formative years, to have decided to become a teacher, and that's what I became. I followed my dreams and I fulfilled them, and I retired as a university professor.
So your dream first took you, though, from Weatherford to, you got to be a story here. You got to Barstow, is that right? Barstow, California, teaching in middle school. How did you wind up in Barstow, Dr. Mann?
Oh, you let me see how to explain this. I wanted to teach Indian children, but I did not want to teach in the Bureau of Indian Affairs school because I had my idea of the Bureau of Indian Affairs and how it had contributed to the deculturation of Indian people. But I wanted to teach Indian young people. I just wanted to teach, period. And my mother lived in California, and so I decided that I wanted to spend time with my mother. She lived in Los Angeles, applied for a job. They were at Barstow, California, was advertising for teachers, and so I ended up teaching social studies in the junior high there.
Which is predominantly white population.
And I decided that that is not what I went into my teaching profession for, and I came back to Oklahoma. And ultimately married, started my family. My late husband worked in the public information here at Oklahoma State University. We moved here to Stillwater. My youngest daughter, Jackie, was born here. And
a lot of good memories here at Stillwater then for you.
Very good memories.
And you got your master's degree here?
I did,
right?
with a Master of Arts degree in English. It was something I had to learn to do. I had to learn to speak in the language of communication of this country. And so we moved here to Stillwater, had good memories, got my master's degree ultimately, and then that was when I found my place in this world in terms of teaching in Native American studies at the higher education level. Went from here in Stillwater to teach at the University of California in Berkeley.
Could I ask you one quick question? Was there some people that you developed friendships with that you developed your relationships with or special to you while you were here at Oklahoma State? Any names you remember, faculty or friends?
I worked in the art department. J.J. McVicker was my supervisor. But to be truthful, I really have not stayed in touch with many individuals here at Oklahoma State University, sadly, because I went off, was fulfilling my dream. I went to teach in Native American Studies at the University of California, Berkeley. But Oklahoma State University certainly prepared me well for that job, and as well as it could. I had confidence and but I had to go back and figure it out. The information and teaching about Native American studies on my own. But no institution in the world could have prepared me for that anyway, because it just was not the thing to teach about Native Americans at the time I was growing up and even going to school here.
So you were at Berkeley then, and then you did your doctorate at University of Mexico? Is that
I
right?
did eventually.
So you were at Berkeley for a few years, and then
I was at Berkeley for 2.5 years during the heyday of activism. My students were all out on Alcatraz, occupying Alcatraz. They finally came back to school. Having grown up in Hammond, Oklahoma, lived in Stillwater, Oklahoma, I'm really just a small town girl at heart.
Yes.
And I thought, this is not the place for me. And I applied for a job in Montana, and that has been home for the past 35 years. I retired from the Montana University system, and I went up through the ranks. I started out as an assistant professor, was promoted to associate professor with tenure, became a full professor, and when I left the University of Montana to go and teach and accept an endowed chair position, which is, that's what we all aim for in the professoriate. I accepted that and went from the University of Montana to Montana State University, and I retired technically in 2003. I still continue, however, to be employed on a post-retirement contract with the president of Montana State University as his special assistant. And he has loaned me to the tribes for this year to be the president of our tribal college, the Cheyenne and Arapaho Tribal College.
I went back and just looked at the 28 years at the University of Montana. Was that one of the, my understanding is maybe one of the first programs in Native American studies?
Well,
So you
among
kind of got
the
in the ground
earliest.
for that. Could you share a little bit maybe of kind of the legacy that you think that program left and that you left there at the University of Montana? And kind of what was sort of your major goals and purposes there, and what do you feel like you accomplished there?
Having taught at the University of California, Berkeley, Native American Studies was a part of an ethnic studies department. And we were housed along with other minorities at that time, Chicano studies, Asian studies, and Black studies. And my experience there and my commitment to Indian education, to Indian people, is, the next job I go to is going to be a standalone program and not part of an ethnic studies program. For some that works well, but it didn't work well for me, just in terms of my own orientation and what I felt I had to do. And so I went to the University of Montana, and there were 3 courses when I went to work as the director of Native American Studies, and when I left there, we had a baccalaureate degree in Native American Studies. And it was a standalone program. It was take this and build it, do what you want with it. And I did. It was a wonderful process in change and development, having to develop courses dealing with the American Indian experience, American Indian literature, seminars on American Indian women, Montana Indians, the introduction to Native American studies. What I liked best were, of course, teaching the Cheyenne language and culture courses, which I did. And so it's a very academically rigorous baccalaureate degree program in Native American Studies that I certainly helped to develop at the University of Montana in Missoula.
Question, I read somewhere, quoted that someone had guessed that you had probably maybe 80% of the students you taught had been non-Native American.
Right.
And could you share, kind of what you think maybe you were able to accomplish or achieve in explaining Native American culture to
Parents would probably just be surprised, because I said I was about instituting and bringing about a peaceful revolution. If there can be ever a revolution that's peaceful. But it was helping the children of my non-Indian brothers and sisters understand that there are cultural differences in the world, that we are different, that even the flowers that we see around are very different, but they're flowers. That we have a common humanity, but there are cultural differences. There are differences in historical experiences. There are different ways of looking at the world and relating to that world and to the environment about us. And in Native American studies, I could do that. It was wonderful to go to work every day because it was a joy for me to tell others about the beauty of what it is to be American Indian, in my case to be Cheyenne, but at the same time also to remind them that if indeed there is going to ever be peace in this world, that we have to understand each other and we have to understand our experiences. And I had to teach about the tragic kinds of experiences that we encountered as Cheyenne people, that Indians encountered in history in terms of the depopulation of this country following contact from it's 5.65 million. I believe those are the most recent adjusted figures of the population at time of contact. Others say 16 million to a population low, as you are aware, of 250,000 in 1890 when Indians were first included in the federal census. That is a dramatic decline. And how did we do that? Yes, we did it through conflict, but a lot of it was a result of maybe it wasn't intended. I could certainly equate it to a form of biological germ warfare, the kinds of diseases that were brought to this country by those who came from other parts of the world. And brought the diseases that we had never experienced before, to which we had developed no immunity, whether it was whooping cough, smallpox, tuberculosis, on and on and on. So that we succumbed to those kinds of new diseases that came here. So that I guess if we want to put things in proper perspective after 9/11, we of all people can understand the fear that was created by the kind of experience that we collectively shared as the United States of America. We call terrorism, but unfortunately, if we're going to be true to history, American Indians also suffered that same kind of experience. And that when we think of anthrax, yes, it may not have been anthrax in post contact times or early contact times, but it was smallpox when blankets were deliberately infected with smallpox and issued to American Indian tribes for them to develop that disease. Maybe it wasn't true for all that we encountered, but I do know as the expansion, as this country manifested its destiny, and cultural imperialism was put into play. There was a cholera epidemic in Europe, and there was consequently leading to a cholera epidemic in St. Louis. And as the settlers went out in the mid 1800s, they carried that same cholera. They carried cholera with them and decimated Cheyenne camps by about 50%. It had been described by George Bent that entire villages were oftentimes left standing with the dead in those tents, and the result of cholera. And so, yes, so we need to understand that, because after all, we are the first peoples of this country. You're not going to find us any other place in the world. Our first languages are the first here. Our cultures are the first. And I think it was very important for me, following our own traditions, to maintain that tradition of being among the first teachers of this country, which certainly led me to go into the education field.
Well, your mission was primarily teaching Native Americans, and you really had a larger mission too, perhaps educating non as well.
It was. And so if those parents knew it, their children were about the process of understanding and in their own way affecting change. to create more harmonious relations between and among the cultures, and just recognizing that kind of link that we have to one another as human beings first.
But your heart has always been with your people. As you mentioned earlier, you're kind of gone full circle, come back to Oklahoma. You retired from Montana State, but not for long. Was it April this year, I think, that you were then officially inducted as president of the Cheyenne Arapaho Tribal College there in Weatherford. And could you tell us a little bit about the philosophy and mission of the college and your aspirations for it?
The vision of the college is to be an educational sanctuary and to house the cultural capital of the Cheyenne Arapaho people, and to develop the ability of our students to think, to be good-hearted Cheyenne people. That quest that I am on, to be good at Arapaho, but to have a safe place to learn that, a safe place that honors their heritage as Cheyennes and Arapaho people. This is the college is really a monument to all of the Cheyenne ancestors that have ever lived on this land. It is their legacy, and we had wonderful educational systems of our own, maybe not the way we know them to be today, but our educational systems, I would say, were performance-based or competency-based educational systems. And we educated very skillful, knowledgeable men and women. And so we continue along that same line with that same kind of thinking to want our young people, hopefully, to be skillful and knowledgeable Cheyenne and Arapahoes, even though they live in the 21st century in a different time. They have an educational tradition that they can fall back on. So ours is that sanctuary that houses traditional knowledge of the Cheyenne Arapaho people and has the responsibility to teach that kind of traditional knowledge to all Cheyenne and Arapaho young people. In terms of the mission itself, we want to provide nothing but a very culturally based, academically strong education to Cheyenne and Arapaho students, to other Indian students, to non-Indians that want to come to our school as well, and help them to understand their place in this world, in this time, in this place.
And you indicated, I wanted to share a couple quotes if I can. One author wrote, Henrietta Mann, quote, embodies the ideology of a tribal leader. At the same time, she defies it, end quote. Another wrote that, quote, she has traditional values in action and what it means to be a contemporary American Indian, end quote. Can you explain the anomaly here a little bit, the apparent contradiction in the statements? And maybe there's not.
Rick West, I think, is the one that said that. There's no contradiction. Absolutely no contradiction. If you stop and think of those that came to live with us, just think of the cultural knowledge that was brought to this country by those who came here to live with us, whether it was German, French, Irish, Italian, all of that. Because everyone has that kind of heritage that they can say is them. We might say we're all American, but what is American? I know there's no one model American. I haven't found that one model American yet. But I can be Cheyenne. I can go into our most sacred place, our Sundance Harbor. I can go to fast at Bear Butte, which is the spiritual center of the universe. And I have my responsibilities to care for and to pray for all life, to ask for blessings upon this creation. But at the same time, I can go into any classroom, any venue where I'm asked to speak, and I hope bring a message of love, compassion, understanding, and peace from that I have learned in an academic context, maybe, but I can't separate them. They cross for me They are who I am. I have a very I have the best education. I have a very good education, but among the best that we can get in terms of college degrees. But that hasn't changed who I am in terms of my heart, my spirit, my culture. But I can be both. Uh, Rolling Stone magazine can hail me as one of the 10 top professors in the country, but that has not changed me or derailed me and kept me from being just a good-hearted Cheyenne woman.
Back to where we started, that was
Right.
a good British one. What, if you'll allow me one more quote, you referred to Dr. Gamble there, the president of Montana State University. He describes you in this way. He said, Henrietta, I'm quoting, is a most remarkable woman and also a very powerful woman, spiritually powerful, intellectually powerful, politically powerful, end quote. Wow. Do you agree with him?
That's his assessment. I just take these talents that I have to work with people, whether they're legislators or the governor of our tribe or elected leaders. I'm never conscious of that power. I may be perceived as having it. I have responsibilities. I have responsibilities to build a peaceful, safe world for my daughter and for my grandchildren and all of my grandchildren. And maybe it takes power to do that, but I never perceive it. I think if people become aware of their power, then they lose it, because power can be abused. Power can corrupt. And so I never think of myself in that context. But if it is there, I hope I will always use it for the good of the people.
Dr. Mann, what's been your talisman and your true north that's guided your life?
Love and respect. I have been taught that love and respect are our most powerful weapons, and that the most destructive weapons are jealousy and fear. So my true north has been about love, about respect, about compassion, and being of service to others.
Thinking back in your life, have there been, you mentioned some of these, and so maybe this is a little bit of a review of that, but some people who have shaped you have been role models and mentors for you in your life, have been important in your life. Who would some of those be?
My grandfather and my father been powerful influences in my life. They kept me grounded. They still keep me grounded even though they're not here. Other individuals, my English teacher in high school. I decided that I wanted to be like her, and I don't think I've ever told her. She was left-handed as well. Her name was Louise Sadler.
Is she still alive?
I don't know.
Maybe we can share this with her. You get a chance to tell her now.
And so Louise Sadler was left-handed, this left-handed English teacher who would come along and look at the way that I held my pen. And I wrote as most left-handed people did, like that. And she would come and turn my paper around. And she said, you can write that way. And so I learned to write that way. My letters have a backward slant to it. I decided that I wanted to become like Louise Sadler. Not so much another Louise Sadler, but like Louise Sadler, an English teacher, a left-handed person that held her paper right so that she could maybe be sort of normal, like other children were normal in the way they held their paper, even though they wrote with the right hand.
Did you have the half chair that was for right-handed people? I'm left-handed, had the same thing, trying to write on a half desk with some right-handed people. It's kind of tough, isn't
I know you don't realize that we have a shorter lifespan than right-handed people. I don't know why.
No, I don't want to hear that.
Statistically, that's been stated. And it's Louise Sadler. But beyond that, my great-grandmother, the one that welcomed me into this world and I guess culturally grounded me, but also gave me a purpose in life. Just to remember who I am and to always help Cheyenne's. Um, I can remember her from my childhood, seeing her once. And when we had the opening ceremonies of the Cheyenne Arapaho Tribal College on August 25th, 2006, was the first time I ever saw a photograph of her. And the photograph was given to me at the opening ceremonies of the college. Then I knew what she looks like.
And
And
she the one, Dr. Mann, that survived the massacre by with the Black Kettle tribe.
mhm. And in that particular photograph, she's holding a cradle board. And in that cradle board is me.
Ah,
I mean, it was almost as if I had finally found. I knew where I came from. I knew where I belonged. And she has had a phenomenal impact on my life. My father would say, my grandmother said this, and I'm telling you this. My grandfather would say, my mother taught me this. I'm passing it on down to you. And just like my father told me, his father told him, I don't have anything to leave you. The only thing I have to leave you is my words, and those words come from my grandmother. Those words come from my mother. It's those kinds of teachings that come from one generation to the next that are so important, that help us to maintain our sense of history, this continuum between yesterday and today, and it's got to be there for tomorrow. And that, I think, is another one of my reasons here, to make sure that there is that body of traditional Cheyenne knowledge and teachings and our ceremonies that are going to be there for all Cheyennes who have yet to come to live on this earth. So she has had an absolutely, I would say, extraordinary impact on my life, for me not to have known her. But I have known her in a way. I've known her genetically. I know her spiritually. She was a midwife. She was a doctor in our traditional sense. In this case, a doctor of horses. We relied upon horses. And so others, there is Louise Sadler. Um, Ironically, I learned from my children.
how do
They
you-
have taught me a great deal about love, about what it is to understand, to be patient, to be generous with. So it's been family, aside from the English teacher.
Dr. Mann, how of all the things you've accomplished, and done in your lifetime, how do you want to be remembered? What do you hope your legacy will be?
I just want to be remembered as a good Cheyenne woman who lived a life of service, who put the honor of the people before her and wanted to be honorable like them, and to make sure that they never had to endure again the kind of sadness and fear and tragedy of Sand Creeks or Ouachitas, that would not be a part of their experience. And that's what I've been doing in terms of my peaceful revolution, to teach the children of my brothers and sisters who came to live with us about us, that we are not to be feared, that we're not obstacles to progress, that we do not stand in the way of expansionist doctrine and policy, that we are human beings, that we gave away and into our country to others, whether it was through taking, fraud, or disowning us, that there's still the very fact that we live here together, and that we should honor each other's cultural differences and cultural orientations, regardless of the cultural backgrounds from which we come. And if we don't do that, then our grandchildren are never going to know that world of peace that they deserve to live in.
Dr. Mann, is there any other topic that we haven't touched on? Anything you'd like to share that we haven't discussed yet?
The Cheyenne Arapahoe College is very small, it's very fragile, it's like a little plant that has to be nurtured and nourished. And it's probably the biggest educational challenge of my life. I've done many things and have been very blessed with having sort of maybe succeeded. I mean, gone up through the ranks in a major university, retired, been an endowed chair. I think all of that has prepared me to be a college president, a tribal college president. But it is by far the biggest challenge that I have ever experienced in my life. And so I'm glad to be there helping. But there are days where I stop and look around and say, what am I doing here? I should be retired. And then I look at the younger people who don't, and some of them who say, well, I don't want to go to college. I don't see the value of an education. And I am taken a little bit aback by that. It has been very difficult to get an enrollment or a student body for the college. We have over 100 or around 100 part-time and full-time students, but each one of those students has been like pulling my teeth. So we have to make sure that we go back and inspire and motivate them and encourage them to see the value in education if they are going to be the kind of self-sustaining and independent people that we have always been as Cheyenne and Arapahoes. So that's a big challenge for me right at this point in time. But I've never been daunted by many challenges except that I feel right now I'm working against time. I'm going to be 75 this next year. And I guess ultimately I'm about looking for the right person to come to work with me for a year, and then it can be that person's responsibility to take the college from where I leave it.
I wouldn't bet against you, Dr. Mann. Anything else?
Oh, no. And I look to institutions of this type to develop and those kinds of people who are, you can always, to find the right person with a PhD. An EDD will do too, but a PhD. But maybe that's important. It's very important. But I'm also going to need someone that has a commitment, the love of the people here inside. It's got to have a passion. They've got to be very, very committed to Cheyenne and Arapahoe culture.
So you were on the board of trustees and then the interim president and now president. They had to kind of wean you away from Montana State, I understand.
Oh, I got to tell you the one day where I thought, oh, good. Someone said, who doesn't want to be an officer? And I held up my hand. I don't want to be an officer. I have plenty of things to do. And so they let me get by with it. And I thought, oh, that was easy. I don't have to be an officer. And then about the next hour after lunch, then I was approached about, well, now we want you to be the interim president. And I said, I can't be. Oh, we want you to be the president. And I said, I can't be. I've got a job in Montana. I have a home up there. I can't do that. And they said, well, will you be interim president? You can go back and forth. And I did for a year. Mm-hmm. And you don't run a college or build a college from Montana. And very fortunately, President Campbell from Montana State University said, we have to help tribal colleges. And so we'll help your tribe. You go down there, Henry. You do it. He said, you come back home. We're going to be waiting for you.
We kind of feel like you've already come back home, both home too. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. I hope you got whatever information you needed for your interview. It's been delightful.
Appreciate it. Very, very helpful.
You've had me think very deeply in my heart for a lot of your questions, not in my mind, but